low enough for our next guest. She has ventured to both making her the first woman to reach Earth's highest as well as lowest points.
She even can now add author to this growing list of accomplishments. And when I say a list of accomplishments, does she have them? Her memoir, To the Greatest Heights, which was published in March, takes you on an unexpected journey to the top of the world's highest mountains. We're so fortunate this morning to be joined by extreme climber and author Vanessa O'Brien. And Vanessa, I must ask, we have many questions for you. We'll try to keep them as brief as possible so you can talk. I want to know, was there a specific adventure that inspired you to write this book, or is it just the host of climbs and expeditions that you've been on?
Oh, good morning, Stephen and Kendall. Hi. I have to say that the book really came about by request from the audience members that I spoke to. I think every time I went to speak to somebody, I think the audience Q&A was always longer than the talk, and people just wanted to know more because some of the things you just can't make up that happen on expeditions. So that was really the impetus for the book. And really, it's weather that plays such a big part in this book. The decision to go or not go, and the extreme conditions. Even Everest, if you talk about the top of Everest, you can only climb Everest really during the month of May, in most cases, because it's 200-mile-an-hour winds, or at least 74 or greater mile-an-hour winds, and that's a Category 1 hurricane. So when you put it in that perspective, you start to understand the extreme weather that we're facing when we get near the summit of the top of some of these mountains.
Wow. So speaking of climbing Mount Everest, what would you say would have been your craziest climb as well as maybe your hardest climb that you've ever done?
Hardest for me is probably is rock climbing. So there is one pure rock climbing, that's Kirsten's Pyramid in Indonesia. And that's probably the most unusual in that Mani and Dani tribes take us. I was held for ransom 3 times. That was unusual because I tried to negotiate my way out of that using, all the skills I picked up with my MBA and other things through life. It didn't quite apply perfectly in those situations, although it is a comedy. So the book's quite funny as well. But it's all these things are experiential and interesting because as you find yourself in these very strange places, you try different techniques and tactics and experiential things to navigate your way in and out of situations as they occur, real time.
Well, Vanessa, you hold several Guinness Book of World Records. You were the first woman to reach the highest point and the lowest point on Earth. You were the first woman to climb the 7 summits, of course, on each continent. Just to name a few, the first person to reach the farthest and nearest points to the Earth's core. Just a fascinating list. And you discuss how important weather is. Yes. Would you say the toughest weather was on Mount Everest, where you faced those winds upwards of 150 miles per hour? Because that's where planes fly. That's where we see that jet stream.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about climbing 8,000 meter peaks or peaks over 26,000 feet. There are 14 of them in the world. They're all in the Himalayas, all in Asia. Probably the toughest weather for me was on K2, the second highest mountain in the world. It took me 3 times to get to the top, and that's in Pakistan. And that really was almost 16 hours one way, if you can imagine, from Camp 4 to the summit, which is just 3,000 meters, 3,000 feet. And what's interesting about that was I felt that every time I was going a little bit farther, I was actually going through the bad weather to get to the top, which was a bluebird day, but I had to go through the bad weather to get to the sunshine, if you will. So sometimes we actually climb through the storms to get to the top, and that's what's so unusual is we're climbing that high because all weather takes place underneath the top of the mountains, if you will. And that's
incredible.
Yeah,
and also a life lesson.
Yes.
Just mentioning going through the storms before you can see those blue skies.
Yes, exactly. And Vanessa, I'm actually really fascinated in maybe potentially would want to climb Mount Everest one day. So do you have any tips on how to prepare for climbs like that?
Yeah, so much of climbing is hiking. So if people are interested in this, the best way to start is really to get out in nature to start hiking. Here in New York, we are fortunate that we're close to a lot of hiking in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley. Just outside of Cold Spring, there's a lot of hiking trails. We're close to the Adirondacks. Western Pennsylvania, we have New Hampshire. So the highest mountains there are around 4,000 feet. So you can get some height, and it's not necessarily height that you're looking for initially. It's just whether you can build the stamina to go back and forth. And in fact, even Mount Washington, which is the highest in the Northeast, has some very strange weather patterns, which make it very, very hard, especially in winter, to get to the top. So it's not always height that's tricky, but it's the stamina to get there in all weather conditions.
Well, those are all really great tips, and I definitely look forward to speaking with you again. But Vanessa O'Brien, extreme climber and author to The Greatest Heights, thank you so much for being with us on the show this morning. It's been an honor.
Nice
and
to
the
see
book
you.
is available now. You can buy it. You can listen to it. And I have to say, with this list of records and just an adventurer, that you are, really appreciate you joining us this morning, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you both.